The council session erupts into pandemonium at the Chilfar's pronouncement. Kavax's crystalline gavel shatters completely this time, unable to reform as wave after wave of telepathic discord sweeps through the chamber. Clarify immediately. Demands hegemony representative Orcs, his gravity manipulation harness propelling him aggressively toward the Chilfar. What entity grants this protection? Under whose authority? The Chilfar merely tilts its ancient head, tentacles twisting in amusement. You mistake a warning for bureaucracy, young one. Commander Talix interjects, exoskeleton plates shifting nervously. We've cataloged 17 million sentient species. None claim dominion over Sol system. This protection is without precedent. Send probes, suggests the methular delegate, her translucent body pulsing with bioluminescent anxiety patterns. Simple observation drones tow. 342 probes, interrupts the archival intelligence, its holographic form materializing at chamber center. That is the precise number of unauthorized reconnaissance devices dispatched to Earth orbit over the past 8 millennia. None returned. No debris detected. Uncomfortable silence descends as the implications register. The Chilfar glides toward the exit portal, apparently considering the matter closed. Wait, Talix calls out. The safety of the galactic community supersedes any historical taboo. I propose a direct test, a controlled first contact scenario to evaluate the threat level. We select an average human, isolated from their population centers. The temperature drops another 30 degrees. Frost forms on metal surfaces. The Chilfar doesn't turn, but its voice resonates through the chamber with harmonics that cause several delegates' translation implants to short-circuit. I have witnessed the erasure of 16 civilizations that ignored this boundary. The mechanisms of protection are not diplomatic or juridical. They are absolute. In demonstration, the ancient being extends one foreclaw. From it unfurls a shimmering temporal displacement, a vision shared involuntarily with all present. They witness a research vessel, bearing markings of the long-extinct Thraxi Dominion, approaching Earth's moon. As it prepares to deploy landing craft, space itself seems to fold. The ship doesn't explode or disintegrate. It simply ceases to exist, with such totality that reality smooths over the gap where it once was. The last incursion, the Chilfar explains, occurred during Earth's Bronze Age. The architects' defense systems have only grown more sophisticated since. Architects. Whispers Kavax, mandibles trembling. The precursors. Impossible. They vanished eons ago. Not vanished, corrects the Chilfar. Transformed. Evolution toward purposes beyond your comprehension. As it departs, the ancient being broadcasts one final thought. Not to the Council, but directed at Sol system, across thousands of light years. The delegates receive only the psychic backwash, but it carries unmistakable emotional resonance. Anticipation. Call an emergency session of the High Conclave. Kavax orders, attempting to reassert control. We need historical analysis, technical assessment, strategic. You need nothing, counters the Volthran observer, eyes fixed on the holographic Earth, except to heed the warning. We don't cross that line. 16 hours into emergency surgery, Dr. Ketri's bloodshot eyes burn from exhaustion. The Zithari patient's chitinous thorax rises and falls with labored breathing, each exhalation releasing spores that the ship's environmental systems struggle to filter. Vitals stabilizing, reports Ensign Rodriguez, monitoring adapted sensors. Though I can't tell if that shade of ichor is normal or. Nothing about this is normal. Chatri snaps, adjusting the molecular binder that's fusing the alien's exoskeleton back together. Human medical tools, never designed for insectoid physiology, litter the makeshift operating theater. Several are melted beyond recognition from contact with Zithari biochemistry. 3 decks below, Captain Rice faces her own battle in the communications bay. You deliberately violated first contact protocols, endangered this vessel, and potentially exposed Earth to hostile attention, Park reads from the official reprimand transmitted from UNST headquarters. The Odysseus is ordered to withdraw immediately and rendezvous at Jupiter Station for full decontamination and crew debriefing. Reyes silences him with a gesture. Send response. Unable to comply. Communication systems damaged during rescue operation. Message unclear. Will continue mission as previously outlined. She taps a command sequence that adds just enough static to make her lie plausible. That's falsifying reports, Park warns, but his posture suggests reluctant admiration. Court-martial offense. Add it to my collection. Reyes responds, eyes never leaving the tactical display where 6 Zithari refugees now crowd the medical bay. How's our defensive readiness? The weapons officer grimaces, shields at 82%, rail cannons fully charged. But Captain, if those Scorathi ships are as advanced as the Zithari claim. Reyes activates the ship-wide address system. All hands, this is Captain Reyes. As most of you already know, we've taken aboard refugees from an attacked vessel. Their pursuers may come looking. I want to be clear, helping them was my decision alone. Any crew member with concerns should document them for the record. She pauses, then adds, but while they're aboard, these beings are under our protection. That is all. From their cloaked observation post, Commander Vrex watches the human crew prepare for possible confrontation. Remarkable, notes his gynopsychologist. They're exhibiting pack-bonding behavior with exobiological entities. Previous models suggested this was impossible outside evolutionary lineages. More concerning, Vrex replies, is their complete disregard for self-preservation. There's a psychiatric aspect to their protective instinct. The scanner technician interrupts. Commander, I'm detecting energy signatures at the system's edge. Scorathi patrol signature confirmed. 3 vessels, heavy combat class. Now we'll see the humans retreat. The Direxian observer predicts confidently. Their behavioral profile suggests aggression until threatened, then strategic withdrawal to protect their genetic interests. They watch in stunned silence as the human vessel instead moves to position itself between the approaching Scorathi ships and the system's jump point, the Zithari's only escape route. They're shielding them. Vrex can't conceal his disbelief. With a single obsolete vessel. Worse, the scanner technician reports. They're actively signaling the Scorathi. Message reads, unknown vessels. This is UEV Odysseus *. The ships you're pursuing are under human protection. In all his centuries of xenological research, Vrex had never documented suicidal behavior as a first contact protocol. The implication sent a chill through his primary nervous system. Prepare emergency extraction protocols, he orders. If the humans provoke the Scorathi into a full assault, we may need to intervene despite non-interference directives. His second-in-command looks horrified. The Council expressly forbade. The Council. Vrex interrupts, watching Captain Reyes calmly issue orders that will likely get her killed, doesn't understand what we're dealing with. Aboard the inevitable Dominance, Krasek punches through a navigation console, scattering crystalline fragments across the bridge. His tactical officers freeze, instinctively lowering their gaze submissively. Explain, he hisses, tail lashing violently, how a primitive species with technology centuries behind ours could anticipate our movements. The intelligence officer, scales darkening with stress patterns, activates a holographic display. They didn't, War Chief. They've committed their entire defensive capability. Every vessel capable of reaching the conflict zone is present. Suicidal, Krasek muses, momentarily fascinated. And yet, he studies tactical readouts showing 37 mismatched human vessels forming an improvised defensive perimeter. There's elegance to their madness. He notices something peculiar in the formation pattern. Magnify grid sector AR7. The display zooms to show small civilian craft, mining vessels, research platforms, even passenger shuttles, positioned at key tactical junctures in the human blockade. Each bears markings from different Earth nations, many historically hostile to one another. They've calibrated their formation to maximize crossfire coverage despite incompatible weapon systems, the tactical officer observes with reluctant admiration. Each vessel positioned to compensate for others' weaknesses. Krazek's slit pupils dilate. In 8 centuries of conquest, he'd never encountered a species willing to sacrifice everything for non-genetic kin. More disturbing, the coordination between historically adversarial human factions suggested a capacity to transcend deeply entrenched conflicts when facing external threats. A dangerous evolutionary adaptation, he murmurs. He opens a secure channel to his true masters. The holographic avatar of a Dreth overseer materializes, a being so horrific even Krazek's battle-hardened crew avert their eyes. The humans protect the Zithari refugees. Krazek reports. They've committed their entire defense force. Irrelevant, the Dreth dismisses. Their technology poses no threat. It's not their technology that concerns me. Krazek counters carefully. It's their psychology. They exhibit unprecedented cooperative behavior across historical enemy lines. Their neural response to protective imperatives overrides self-preservation. The Dreth leans forward, suddenly interested. You suggest mutation or engineering. Krazek responds. No natural evolutionary path produces a species that values non-genetic kin over survival. The Dreth falls, silent, processing. When it speaks again, its voice carries an unfamiliar harmonic, something Krazek has never heard from his masters before. Fear. Withdraw immediately. Do not engage. The humans must be studied before confrontation. From their observation post, T'Prel and her fellow Confederation monitors watch in disbelief as the Skorathi fleet retreats. Analysis confirms they outgunned the human vessels by an order of magnitude, her tactical specialist reports. Victory was mathematically certain. Yet they withdrew. T'Prel muses, mandibles clicking thoughtfully. The Skorathi never retreat. More significant, interjects the neural monitor, is that throughout the confrontation, I detected no decision cascade among human command structures. This wasn't a calculated risk based on odds of survival. Meaning, T'Prel prompts. Meaning they wouldn't have retreated regardless of the outcome. The defense of non-humans wasn't conditional on success probability. The neural specialist's voice drops. In 17,000 documented sentient species, this behavioral pattern has no precedent. T'Prel studies the human vessels resuming escort formation around the Zithari refugees. Contact the Council. Priority Alpha 1. We need historical records of any species with similar psychological profiles. Shall I cite suspected external manipulation? Her communications officer asks. T'Prel hesitates. No. Cite possible convergent evolution toward something new. As she watches human ships coordinating their protective formation, an ancient philosophical concept from her species rises unbidden in her mind. The fire that burns inward consumes itself. The fire that burns outward reshapes worlds. Krell stands in the rain outside Oxford's Bodleian Library, his synthetic skin prickling uncomfortably with moisture. He's been on Earth for 8 months now, and still cannot acclimate to water falling freely from the sky. The genetic modifications allowing him to pass as human provide no protection against the persistent feeling of wrongness that accompanies him through this world. His communicator, disguised as an antique wristwatch, vibrates with an encrypted message from his Confederation handlers. Rory PORT2X direction point. Cover compromised. Impossible. His infiltration was perfect, his human persona flawless. Unless a black vehicle pulls alongside the curb. The window lowers to reveal a severe-looking woman with close-cropped gray hair. Professor Kent, she says, her voice carrying no inflection. MI6. Please get in. Krell calculates escape vectors, weighing the risk of revealing his true capabilities against the need to maintain cover. Before he can decide, the woman speaks again. Or should I say Operative Krell of Confederation Intelligence? We've been expecting you. In an underground facility beneath London, Krell sits across from director Emily Winters. Between them on the steel table rests an alien data crystal, identical to those he discovered in Tibet. "We've had this since 1947, Winters explains. "Roswell wasn't a weather balloon, obviously. You've known about extraterrestrial life for centuries," Krell realizes. Winters smiles thinly. "Longer. The Vatican archives you breached. They contain records of non-human contact dating back to 4000 BCE. Every major civilization on Earth has hidden histories of gods or angels or demons who shared knowledge, then disappeared." She slides a folder toward him. Inside are photographs of ancient artifacts from disparate cultures, all bearing identical mathematical sequences, all describing beings who promise to return when the stars align. "We've been waiting," Winters continues. "Governments rise and fall, but certain institutions maintain continuity. The keepers we call ourselves. Every nation has them. Secret caretakers preserving knowledge of what we really are." "And what are you?" Krell asks, synthetic pulse accelerating. Winter's eyes hold something ancient. The Inheritors. She activates a monitor showing satellite imagery of the Gobi Desert. Massive geometric patterns, invisible to normal spectrum, emerge when viewed through specific frequencies. These appeared 3 days ago, after your visit to Tibet. They match patterns in our oldest texts. Her voice softens. "We've wondered what would trigger the awakening. Perhaps it was you, the first confirmed extraterrestrial to walk among us openly." Krell's training fails him, but I was completely undetectable. To technology, yes, but certain humans have always been sensitive. Throughout history, children have drawn pictures of beings like you, described visitors in dreams. She shrugs. "We monitored university hiring globally for unusual candidates. Your background was impeccable, too impeccable." The implications stagger Krell. Humans hadn't just been passively waiting. They'd been actively preparing, maintaining millennia-long institutional knowledge across civilizational collapses. "Why reveal yourselves to me?" he finally asks. "Because it's beginning." Winters gestures to a wall of monitors showing global news. Unexplained aurora patterns worldwide. Electronic systems experiencing momentary synchronization. Children globally reporting identical dreams of crystal cities. The awakening has started, ahead of schedule. We need your help to understand what's happening. She leans forward, and we offer ours in return. When you report to the Confederation Council, tell them humanity extends an invitation. Join us in facing what comes next. Krell studies the human before him, physically unimpressive, technologically primitive, yet carrying the quiet confidence of a species that has been playing a longer game than anyone suspected. The architects didn't just leave guardians, he realizes aloud. They left guides. Beneath London's shattered financial district, Director Winters leads a team of keepers through ancient tunnels predating Roman occupation. The walls bear inscriptions no archaeologist has ever catalogued, mathematical proofs describing 11-dimensional space carved by hands thousands of years before humans supposedly understood algebra. The activation sequence is accelerating. She reports into a quantum-encrypted communicator. Defense platforms are emerging faster than we can track. Around the world, the pattern repeats. In Egypt's Valley of Kings, sealed chambers open beneath the most famous tombs, revealing not treasures but humming crystalline machinery. Below the Nazca lines, vast chambers activate, sand falling away from entrances untouched for millennia. Beneath Jerusalem's Temple Mount, 3 world religions unknowingly worship above an awakening guardian nexus. Humanity's most sacred sites were never about faith alone. They were markers, reminders to protect specific locations across generations. Supreme Overlord Vexalia's flagship burns through Earth's atmosphere, trailing superheated plasma as emergency systems fail catastrophically. Around her, the Dreth invasion force, supposedly unstoppable, disintegrates under assault from technologies even their advanced civilization cannot comprehend. On the command deck, emergency force fields flicker as hull breaches multiply. The tactical display shows green Earth below, its surface now dotted with pulsing golden nodes, activation sites of Architect defense platforms. The protection directive was not diplomatic. She snarls at her surviving officers. The warnings were literal. And 8 approaches, mandibles trembling. Overlord, we've captured a human for interrogation. Perhaps they can be compelled to deactivate the defense grid. Desperate hope flickers as Vex'ahlia follows her guards to the holding cell. Inside waits a middle-aged human male, unremarkable except for his absolute calm amid the ship's death throes. I'm Dr. Simon Mbeki, South African Astronomical Authority. He introduces himself politely, as though at an academic conference rather than aboard a dying warship. I'd like to discuss terms for your surrender. Vex'ahlia's translator must be malfunctioning. Surrender? We are the Dreth Imperium. We do not. Your invasion fleet has been reduced to 17 vessels from an original 208. Mbeki interrupts, consulting a small device on his wrist. Your flagship will experience complete propulsion failure in approximately 8 minutes, after which the automated defense systems will allow it to crash into the Pacific Ocean. Away from populated areas, of course. He smiles reassuringly. The defense platforms prioritize minimal casualties, even among invaders, a fascinating ethical subroutine. Vex'ahlia studies the human with new intensity. You speak as if you understand these defense systems. Oh, we don't. Mbeki chuckles. Not entirely. But we've studied the markers for generations. The architects left. Instructions. Incomplete, cryptic, but enough to prepare. A tremor rocks the ship. Emergency lights flicker. Mbeki glances at his device again. 7 minutes now. The defense system responds directly to collective human emotional states, specifically to our desire to protect, rather than destroy. It's calibrated to minimize death, unlike your weapons. His eyes harden. An admirable difference between our species. Vex'ahlia's exoskeleton settles into defeat posture. What are your terms? Unconditional withdrawal of all forces, a formal non-aggression pact. And Mbeki leans forward, utterly unafraid of the being that could tear him apart with one claw. We want information. Everything you know about the architects, and something called the void between thoughts. The ship shudders violently. Klaxons wail as primary systems fail. 6 minutes, Mbeki says calmly. I suggest we continue this conversation in an escape pod. Dr. Eliza Santos steps through the ruins of Geneva's Xenobiology Lab, navigating fallen support beams and shattered equipment. The Dreth bombardment had turned the facility into rubble, yet somehow the data crystals had survived, not only intact but apparently thriving, their luminescence brighter than before the attack. A holographic interface materializes as she approaches, responding to her presence on a level beyond ordinary biometric scanning. It feels like recognition, like greeting. Behind her, Admiral Chen whispers to his aide, "Is it supposed to do that?" "No," the technician responds, checking his instruments. The interface wasn't activated. It's responding directly to her. Santos extends her hand to the floating symbols, mathematical equations so complex they appear almost organic, geometric patterns that seem to breathe with living rhythm. As her fingers touch the light, the equations unfold like flowers, revealing nested layers of information. My God, she breathes. It's not a database. It's a seed. The knowledge transfers directly into her neural pathways, not as data but as understanding, as if remembering something long forgotten. Tears stream down her face, not from pain, but from overwhelming comprehension. The defense systems, she explains, voice trembling. They're not machines. They're extensions of us, of humanity's collective protective instinct. Around the room, every screen activates simultaneously, displaying real-time footage from across the globe. In New York, crystalline towers channel energy through patterns identical to human neural pathways. In Beijing, Defense platforms reconfigure themselves based on the emotional states of nearby children. In Legos, barrier fields strengthen or weaken in direct proportion to the population's collective resolve. The architects didn't build fixed defenses. Santos explains, the glow from the crystals reflected in her dilated pupils. They created adaptive systems that evolve with us, responding to our specific emotional signatures. The more unified our protective intent, the stronger they become. A junior researcher raises his hand tentatively. But why design defenses linked to emotions rather than logical parameters? Because, answers a new voice from the doorway, emotions can't be hacked. The gathering turns to find Director Winters of MI6, accompanied by Krell, now in his natural form, and Dr. Mbeki. Logical systems can be circumvented once understood, Mbeki explains. But emotions, particularly human empathic responses, operate on quantum levels beyond computational prediction. Winters steps forward. The ancient texts call it the fire that cannot be stolen. The architects engineered certain emotional capacities into human genetics, specifically, our ability to care about beings beyond our genetic lineage, beyond even our species. But why us? Asks Chen. Out of all possible species. Krell answers, his natural voice harmonizing oddly with the humming crystals. Because your evolutionary history is unique. Earth's biological development created creatures with both high intelligence and unusually strong social bonds. The architects didn't create humans from nothing. They enhanced what was already emerging. Santos touches another crystal, accessing deeper information layers. Her eyes widen. There's more, she whispers. The defense systems aren't just protecting us from external threats. They're protecting something within us. Genetic sequences still dormant in human DNA. Capabilities meant to fully activate only when. Her voice falters. When what? Chen demands. Santos looks up, her expression transformed by terrible understanding. When the Devourers arrive, deep within the crystalline Harbinger vessel, Captain Rise walks corridors that reconfigure themselves with each step, responding to her thoughts before she consciously forms them. The ship isn't merely accommodating her, it's anticipating her needs, creating pathways to information she doesn't yet know she seeks. It's like the ship is. Dr. Santos struggles for words. Completing us, Rise finishes. Her eyes still pulse with that strange blue luminescence, but her voice remains her own. It's filling gaps in our understanding that we didn't know existed. Krell moves cautiously behind the humans, his sensor arrays detecting energy signatures unlike anything in Confederation records. This technology appears to operate on principles beyond current theoretical physics. Not beyond, Rise corrects. Between. The architects discovered that consciousness itself is a fundamental force, like gravity or electromagnetism. They learned to encode it, transfer it, amplify it. The corridor opens into a vast spherical chamber. At its center floats what appears to be a three-dimensional map of the known universe. Galaxies rendered in perfect detail down to individual star systems. But unlike conventional stellar maps, this one shows currents of energy flowing between systems, connecting civilizations in patterns resembling neural networks. The cosmic web, Santos breathes. It's real. Certain pathways in the map pulse in angry red, showing disruptions spreading like infections through galactic clusters. Rise approaches the display, and it responds by zooming to show the advancing edge of the disturbance, now just 2 galaxies removed from the Milky Way. The Devourers aren't beings, she explains, knowledge flowing into her consciousness directly from the ship. They're conceptual parasites, self-replicating patterns that infiltrate conscious thought, corrupting it from within. They don't destroy civilizations, they transform them into extensions of themselves. The display shifts to show the 7 worlds where the architects had seeded their genetic legacy. 6 appear darkened, their connections to the cosmic web severed. Each seeded species was designed to embody different aspects of architect consciousness. Rise continues. The Cantori were to be the rememberers, preserving history. The Vishnar were to be the shapers, masters of matter. The Tellurians were to be the connectors, maintaining the cosmic web. And humans? Santos asks softly. Rice touches the representation of Earth, and the display transforms to show human history, not as conventional events, but as emotional resonance patterns, spreading and intensifying through generations. Where other species evolve toward greater individual capacity, humans evolve toward more complex social bonds, sacrificing potential personal power for unprecedented collective strength. We were designed to be the guardians, Rice says, not because we're strongest individually, but because we can form protective bonds beyond ourselves. The devourers corrupt by isolating consciousness, turning it inward until it consumes itself. But human consciousness naturally extends outward. We instinctively protect others at our own expense. The ship trembles suddenly, systems pulsing with urgent energy. What's happening? Krell demands, backing toward the entrance. Ray stands transfixed as the cosmic map accelerates, showing the devourer infection advancing much faster than previously indicated. They've detected us, she whispers. A harbinger's awakening has drawn their attention. The timeline has collapsed. The ship's communication systems activate autonomously, broadcasting directly to every human neural implant and Confederation communication device. Convergence failure. Acceleration protocol initiated. All Guardians activate. Project Prometheus, Chen explains. 7 arcs carrying the combined consciousness interfaces, developed from human empathic patterns. Each contains 1 million volunteers neurally linked to architect defense systems. The holographic display shifts to show ordinary humans, teachers, farmers, engineers, artists, entering crystalline chambers, their neural patterns connecting into vast networks. These aren't soldiers, the Diraxian general observes. No, Chen agrees. Soldiers are trained to kill. We need people trained to protect. The strategy becomes clear as the display expands. The Prometheus arcs won't merely attack the devourers. They'll create a firewall of conscious intent, a barrier of protection so fundamental it operates on the quantum level where the devourers exist. Our scientists discovered that human protective instincts generate quantum coherence patterns that disrupt devourer infiltration. Chen explains. The more minds united in protective intent, the stronger the disruption. The Confederation War Council erupts in debate. Many argue the plan is suicidal, sending humans directly into the conceptual void where the devourers exist could result in immediate consciousness absorption. Even if your theory is correct, argues the Methular representative, you propose sending 7 million humans to certain death. Not death, Chen corrects quietly. Transformation. Captain Rice stands before the assembled volunteers aboard the Prometheus flagship. Her eyes no longer glow with that unsettling blue light. Instead, they reflect something more profound. Absolute clarity of purpose. You all know the projections, she begins, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. If we wait for the devourers to reach our galaxy, countless civilizations will fall. Consciousness itself will be corrupted. The volunteers, ordinary people from every nation, every walk of life, listen in silence. Many wear the neural interface crowns that will soon link their minds to the architect systems, and through them, to each other. What you may not fully understand is what awaits us. This isn't a conventional battle. We won't be fighting with weapons, but with the very essence of what makes us human, our capacity to protect rather than consume. She activates a display showing the neural synchronization that will occur once they cross the barrier into devourer space. Individual consciousness, as you know it, will be temporarily suspended. You'll experience a collective state unlike anything in human history. Our scientists cannot predict exactly what this will mean for your subjective experience. A hand raises from the crowd. Will we return as ourselves? Rice meets the questioner's eyes directly. I can't promise that. The architect records suggest transformation is inevitable. But they also suggest something survives, something essential. Murmurs ripple through the chamber. No one leaves. In all our history, Rice continues, humans have drawn lines. boundaries between nations, between beliefs, between species. Today we cross the most fundamental line of all, the barrier between individual and collective consciousness. We do this not to conquer, not to destroy, but to preserve the right of all sentient beings to draw their own lines. The Zithari ambassador approaches, presenting rice with a ceremonial staff. When you rescued our refugees, you changed galactic history. Now you change cosmic history. The neural synchronization countdown begins. 7 million volunteers across 7 ships prepare to unite their consciousness into something never before witnessed in this galaxy. A collective guardian mind with the power to stand against conceptual entropy itself. From the observation deck, Krell watches with the Confederation delegates as the Prometheus fleet approaches the intergalactic void. The architect's final gambit, he whispers. The Chilthar beside him corrects gently. No, their finest creation.